What's up, everybody? This is Bartleby the Bearded Dragon, and it's no secret that bearded dragons are one of the most popular reptiles in the hobby, and definitely a fan favorite, so to speak. But the question today is, are they really good pets? Bartleby is very insulted that we'd even ask such a question, because she knows she's the best. But to come to a decision, we're going to go over pros and cons of bearded dragons. So stick around, we hope you enjoy. So we're going to talk about the pros first, because I do want to talk these animals up and, make a case that they are good pets. But, before people run out and buy them as impulse buys, which happens all the time, as we know, because bearded dragons can be found anywhere that has reptiles. I kind of want to end with the cons, so you leave this video today with an understanding of some of the difficulties. Even though it's not really, we're not really saying they're bad pets, because they're just the best. And she's all over the place, but I might just throw her up on my shoulder here, let her do it. Yeah, what do you think? Comfy. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is their demeanor. So this is about as calm as a reptile is going to get, about as calm as any animal is going to get, really. I mean, she can just sit there. She'll probably run around because she's excited to be out of the cage today. That being said, just totally calm, like not really worried about what I'm doing, you know what I mean? Gives you a little bit of leeway for maybe things like a lot of people are scared of snakes and stuff, and if you're nervous and you make the snake nervous, it can end up being not the best type of situation. She's just gonna do her thing, no matter what the cost is, even for me, if I have to hold my head in a weird position while I shoot this video, that's fine with her. And to go along with their demeanor, I guess we'll talk about their activity level, because if you have them in their enclosure, they do kind of stay stationary for long periods of time, but also, it is fun to watch them move around, and they're going to do that. They're going to use space. We'll talk about enclosure size in a minute, but they'll use as much space as you give them. They'll climb, they'll run, they'll dig sometimes, they'll find a little hole to hide in, all kinds of stuff. So they're honestly pretty entertaining to watch as well. To go along with that, a lot of people worry about losing their reptiles and stuff like that. We keep her secured in her enclosure, but I imagine it'd be difficult to completely lose track of her, because she probably would just find a windowsill or something with some light, find a warm spot and sit on top of something and kind of hang out. So they're pretty manageable at the adult size of, it's easy to keep track of them, is what I'm trying to say. And I want to take a second to talk about the size too. I wish I could hold her in my hands right now, but I don't know, this is pretty fun. She seems comfy, so I'm just going to roll with it. But this is about, lizards come in all different shapes and sizes. This is probably the perfect size. This is the ideal size for a lizard, because it's not, even leopard geckos are pretty small, and they're a fun lizard to interact with, but something like this where you might have people over and then you just take her out and do something like this, and it's a pretty big lizard for people that aren't in the lizards, so it's pretty impressive to look at, but at the same time, it's not eating you out of house and home, it's not taking up a huge portion of your living space. So I have to say they're pretty much the perfect size. And the perfect size for all ages handle too, really, because they're not too big where a kid can hold them, but also a kid's not going to hurt them. You shouldn't let little kids start squeezing them or anything like that. But, even if Bartleby fell from here to the floor, I don't think she'd have any issues. She's a pretty sturdy animal. Now we're going to talk about some more care-related pros. The first of which that I'll bring up, because I think a lot of people that pick these up at a chain pet store or whatever don't really take this into consideration too much. But they do need UV light and they do need a relatively hot basking spot. But I'm leaving this in the pro section because it's pretty easy to achieve. If you get a good UV bulb, it should last you around 6 months. Check it with a UV reader, but should last you about 6 months. And the hot spot, it's nothing like a Euromastix or anything like that, where it's hot, but it's easy to attain with the basking spot that they need, which is around like 100 to 110 degrees, depending on the age of the lizard and everything like that. I don't have my numbers right in front of me, and this isn't a care guide anyway. We're just talking about the pros and cons of these beautiful Australian beasts. Also, the diet, especially as adults, is super easy. Barnaby eats mainly greens and squash. A couple bugs every now and again. We got bugs on hand because we got a lot of animals, but so it's really easy to take care of them, especially as adults. If you find maybe a lot of people get bearded dragons and realize, they don't want to keep them anymore, and by the time they're already at an adult size, it's pretty easy to sustain a diet of greens because you just pick them up when you're at the grocery store. They don't go bad too quick, and they love them sometimes they love them, sometimes they don't, but they usually love anything bright colored. So things like bell peppers work really well, squash, like I said. Barnaby's eating some carrot earlier today, and then you can still have the fun interaction of watching them hunt down some crickets and stuff like that. But as they become adults, you want to scale back the insect portion of their diet so they don't get too chubby. Hi, Barnaby. And with some care talk out of the way, I want to bring up a fact that you don't want to have to rely on. So you don't want to have to rely on this, but it's there. They're extremely hardy. I've seen some bearded dragons in really bad shape, not receiving anything remotely close to the proper care, and they've been doing okay, not great. Obviously, we like to think that Barnaby's pretty healthy, doing great, but what I'm saying is really all it takes is some research. Like if you're keeping any other animal, do research on how to keep it alive, and not just alive but healthy, and you should be okay. You have to leave for a week or whatever, let's say your lights are on a timer, the animal's going to be okay. They don't need water all the time. Provide water for them, but they live in the outback of Australia, so it's not like they always have a watering hole to get to in the wild. So they're hardy enough where, unlike our chameleon, oh, he's in the back there. Unlike him, if no one was here for a week, he probably wouldn't make it because he needs his water refilled, his dripper, his mister, everything, food more often than she needs food, really. So that's another pro for them for sure, is that they are very hardy. You can mess up and they'll probably be okay. Don't do it though. Take good care of them. And the last pro we're going to talk about is, this is the best companion reptile. I truly believe it, because I don't think, they don't have a prefrontal cortex like we do or anything like that, or mammals, but they seem the most unbothered out of all the reptiles about a person being around. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really, she probably wants to go do her own thing and run around and try to, find something to shove in her face and eat, but, I'm not giving her a hard time. She's pretty good about that. You can do all kinds of stuff. I'll play video games, I'll have her on my shoulder, I'll be writing notes for a YouTube video like this, have her on my shoulder, cleaning snakes and stuff, and we have her out with us. So if you're getting into the reptile market because you want a companion type animal, they don't have emotion really like dogs and cats do. So if you really want a connection like that, get a dog or a cat, I guess, if you can. But I'd say they're the closest thing. They're I think the bond that we have is just that I'm the monkey that walks by and gives her food. And she notices that, and she definitely notices when we're feeding bugs to our other animals that are insectivores that get bugs more often than she does now at this point, and she's a little offended by that too. So actually that might hurt our bond if we had any, but you're looking at it. This is as good as it gets. If you want a decent sized lizard that can just hang out with you, you know, if you're that into it, you can watch it rip insects apart every now and again, but you could also feed it a leaf or some peas or something, you know. I don't think it gets any better. I really don't. And now we're going to talk about the cons of having a bearded dragon. Okay, so we're going to start with some of the care issues like we talked about with the pros. I know I put it in the pros that the UV and the heat is relatively easy to maintain. UV lights can be expensive, and it's not something that you want to short just to save a few bucks if you're going to have this animal. Because you got them, they spend most of their day in the sun, in the wild, and they need that sunlight in captivity as well, and it's your job to provide it because you decided that you wanted this animal. And yeah, so that's just, it's not something to short on, but it's a cost. It's not crazy, but it's something to keep in mind. And we talked about their adult diets being pretty easy, which, you know, it really is. You know, you could get bugs as they get old, a few years old and everything like that. You can knock their bug consumption down like even once or twice a month, a couple times a month. But as babies, you know, we grew Barnaby up. I think she was about, I'll have to check my numbers after this, but she was probably about 8 grams when we got her, a couple inches long. And she ate bugs. She ate a lot of bugs. She ate hundreds and hundreds of bugs a week. And, you know, crickets aren't the most fun thing to have in your house, so we spent a lot of money on dubia roaches and black soldier fly larvae as well. And we made a video that you can check out about, you know, different types of feeder insects and the pros and cons of all those, because, you know, you can shove hundreds of mealworms into a baby bearded dragon and they'll eat it, but they're not the ideal things that you want them to eat because the chitin in them, and it's harder to digest than a lot of other bugs. So you know, you can end up spending much more than you spent on the cute little adorable baby bearded dragon on feeding it. And, you know, when something eats a lot, it poops a lot too. And Barnaby took the craziest poops when she was a baby. She would poop literally little casts of herself, full-sized baby bearded dragon poops. And, you know, they smell pretty bad. We're going to do a video on substrate soon, but there are substrate options or, you know, bedding that can help mitigate the issue. Kind of acts like, we use a mixture of coconut coir and play sand for Barnaby. Play sand's okay. I don't want any comments. You can't put sand. They live in sand in the wild. Don't give them calcium sand that they will make them want to eat it. It's play sand, and especially if you mix it with coconut coir, they're going to be fine. But it's definitely helpful because it acts like, you know, they let out a good amount of liquid too with those poops and urates, and it kind of just soaks it up, absorbs it like kitty litter. Less of a smell and less of a unsightly mess. You know, you can still notice it, so you can go ahead and when you see it, you clean it out right away. But you know, we had her on tile when she was a little baby, and she would poop, and she would smear it all over the tiles, and it would just smell like bearded dragon poop in our room. And yeah, it's kind of a hassle, and these poops is real out here, player, when you're dealing with bearded dragons, so it's something to keep in mind. And one last thing I wanted to say, as you know, when I was kind of talking a little bit of smack about their diet as babies and how many bugs they can eat, but it is a very good opportunity that you should take if you're doing it anyway to, you know, tong feed, hand feed. You're going to develop that bond, you know, we'll call it a bond for regular human anthropomorphizing terms. But yeah, it'll give that baby bearded dragon, which obviously babies are less comfortable than a full-size bearded dragon, and, you know, you're giving them that opportunity to see you as not a predator, you know, not as prey either, but something that delivers the food, and that can help with your bond with your animal. Another con, semi-food related, you'll see what I mean in a second, is so they like bright colored vegetables and fruits. Feed them fruits in moderation. It's like giving candy to a baby, so, you know, you don't want to just shove Snicker bars in your infant all day. So you don't want to give fruit every day or anything like that. But, you know, it's a fun food item for them. They enjoy it, and So that kind of, at least in Barnaby's case, has led her to thinking that most things that are brightly colored are, enticing, and they look like a food source. So we also have two cats, and they were asleep. So I had Barnaby out playing video games with me, and she's running around, kind of just doing her own thing. I heard a little like jingle, like a little bell. It was a cat toy that had these, a bunch of long yellow feathers on it, and Barnaby decided that those yellow feathers looked a lot like squash. Called me into action. I was able to get the feathers out from all the way down her throat without, letting any break off and her swallowing any, so that was fun, but it's just something to keep in mind. Also, you can see my fingernails are painted black. Well, some of them are, and, Barnaby thinks sometimes that those are little dubia roaches, and she might try to eat them. So it's just something to keep in mind. Back to care. You'll get sold one of these bad boys at a pet store, and they'll tell you a 40-gallon enclosure is totally fine. They're going to live in that 40 their whole lives, and they're going to be good. It's not true. Not if you really want to, give the animal like a suitable environment. Nowadays, a 4 foot wide by 2 foot deep by 2 foot tall is like the standard now, and even that, that's what we keep Barnaby in. But even that, I think she could use something bigger. But that's the minimum. You don't want to put them in a 40. Like I said, a lot of the times they are stationary, just basking or doing their thing or whatever, but they can be pretty active, and they want the opportunity to do so. You know what I mean? Sometimes Barnaby's just posted up on one of her logs and she's just stuck there for hours at a time. Sometimes, for no real reason at all, she's sprinting back and forth, climbing everything she can, up and down. And, the least we can do as keepers, you're bringing a wild animal, really. Obviously, she's probably generations captive bred, and most bearded dragons are. But, they still have those genes where they don't want to be, and you can do this with some snakes, can have a really small enclosure compared to their size, but, an active semi-arboreal lizard like this, you don't want to do that too. You want to give it as much chance to roam and feel comfortable as it can. So with that being said, it's a considerable, that 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure, that's a considerable amount of a bedroom or a living room, or in our case, a reptile room. So it's I'm calling it a con. These are all lighthearted cons. I don't think that any of these are a reason really to not get a bearded dragon. They're just things to be aware of. And, prepare to buy that enclosure or build that enclosure. Prepare a spot in your house where that enclosure is going to have a spot to be. And that, you should be fine. One of the last things we're going to talk about here, Barnaby is a female. And female bearded dragons can be a lot like chickens in the sense that they can lay eggs without mating or without being fertilized. Now they're probably not going to result in a baby bearded dragon, but the female can still lay eggs, and on its face that seems simple, but egg binding is a problem, or bearded dragons becoming egg bound. Because if you don't give them the right diet leading up to that, if you see eggs developing, or if you don't see eggs developing at all, maybe that's your problem. But, if you have a female bearded dragon, you have to be ready to accommodate the egg laying process. And, I'm really no expert in all that. So I'm not going to give you like a detailed explanation. You can find that, you can do some research. But, for example, you need to provide a lay box which will give them a place where they feel like, okay, I'm comfortable, I can lay these eggs, so that they don't feel like they can't lay the eggs, and the eggs end up getting, maybe growing too large inside, or just never wanting to pass through, and then you can have severe health problems, even death, with your bearded dragon just because of that. And the last so-called con that we're going to talk about, and this is not just for bearded dragons, it's for any animal, even down to dogs and cats, even though humans have those pretty dialed in on how to take care of them, and it's almost common knowledge. But do your research, because we have very different needs than, in this case, I have very different needs than Barnaby needs. They're not the most difficult they're definitely not the most difficult reptile to take care of, but it takes a good amount of research. You know, you're keeping a life that lives very different than you do, or differently. Where are you? You know, you're facilitating a life that is very different than your own, and you know, these things aren't necessarily common sense. I wouldn't call it common sense. I'd call it sense at this point. That, you know, I know what she needs. I know maybe she looks this way or that way, but all that is a result of just a lot of research. And you're not gonna just know how to take care of these off the bat. You're not gonna know how to take care of these because of the pamphlet you got at PetSmart. And so take the due diligence of doing your research, trying to find out everything you can about how to take care of them. And, you know, if you do all these things, you know how to dial in the care and everything, this is one of the very best pet reptiles that lives. So there it is, everybody. Those were the pros and cons of keeping a bearded dragon as a pet. You know, maybe you already have a bearded dragon. Let me know what you think I missed on either side, or something you might move from a pro to a con. I'd love to hear it. You know, maybe you have a friend that just saw your reptile collection or is getting into reptiles, and they're like, you know, I'm gonna go get a bearded dragon tomorrow, but you know, they're gonna keep them in like a 20-gallon or whatever. Let them know that it takes consideration. Again, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but if you're gonna keep a life form, I think it's your responsibility to take care of it the right way, and not just the easy way or the cheap way or anything like that. In conclusion, though, I guess I would say, you know, they're a good pet. They're a very good pet, and you know, not as easy as some things are, but I definitely wouldn't take it as far as to say they're a bad pet. Yeah, we love her. She's kind of going ballistic right now. She's probably gonna try to jump up there. Okay. Yeah, so I didn't want to leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth by finishing with the cons, but just want people to know that they're there, they exist. So we plan on doing these pros and cons videos for every species that we have, at least that we're, you know, pretty comfortable with at this point. You know, I don't want to do with any of the species I get to recently, and I don't really have my own first-hand experience to bring to you guys, so. But, you know, we do have a lot of species that I feel comfortable making a video like this now, and we look forward to doing that in the future. So, if you enjoyed this video, if you think I'm right, or whether you think I'm wrong, or if you just think Barnaby's cute, like and subscribe to our channel, hit that little bell, get notifications every time we post. We're gonna be posting twice a week now. You know, it's about time we got a little more consistent with it and just bring some content out there. You know, even if we're not a premier YouTube channel, it's a hobby that's growing very fast, and I think, as with anything, the more information that's out there it's better, you know. So we look forward to doing that too, because it's something that we're really passionate about. So if we can share that with people, we'd love to. So thank you guys very much for watching. Barnaby, you have to say bye. Bye. And we'll see you guys next time.